Tom Clark's 6M podcast is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show.
Hey, what is up? Welcome to Tom Clark's 6M podcast. I'm your host, Tom Clark, and in this episode, I'm joined by co-host Phil Lindsey.
What constitutes a Christmas movie? What do you guys think out there? What do you think? Does it have to have sleigh bells? Does it have to have a Santa Claus? Does it have to have Rudolph or a talking snowman? Does it need a lot of weird rom-com stuff that could never happen in real life? And if you crap on Hallmark Christmas movies, you and I are going to have a problem, kids, because I'm a sucker for them because they're just so bad. Newsflash, they've actually figured out how to do it. I'm not going to lie to you. Some of these movies are actually good. I know it's a shocker. You don't got to take my word for it. Go look for yourself. But again, what constitutes a good Christmas movie for you? Some people would say it just has to take place at Christmas. Iron Man 3, we did Iron Man 3 here. Trading Places took place at Christmas. We did that as our Christmas review here. We've done Christmas movies as our Christmas review, like National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, which is classified as a Christmas movie. Other movies like Gremlins, which was the Christmas review we did for 2023. Well, that's not a Christmas. Well, it took place at Christmas, Tom, so we called it that. Well, guess what else takes place at Christmas? The movie that we're going to talk about here today, Batman Returns. And let me tell you something, kids. If you have never seen this movie or haven't watched it in years, boy, howdy, your boy has got some epiphanies for you, and you may be shocked at what I say. So I can't wait to get into it. So let's get into this official, unofficial Christmas movie, Batman Returns. Let's jump into it, kids. Batman Returns is a 1992 American superhero film directed by Tim Burton and written by Daniel Waters. Based on the DC Comics character Batman, it is the sequel to Batman from 1989, which we have done here on the pod. Go look it up. And the second installment in the 1989 to 1997 Batman series. In the film, Batman comes into conflict with wealthy industrialist Max Schreck and malformed crime boss Oswald Cobblepot / the Penguin, who seek power regardless of the cost to Gotham City. Their plans are complicated by Schreck's former secretary, Selena Kyle, who seeks revenge against him as Catwoman. The cast includes a star-studded cast of actors and actresses who show up to do these roles. And let me tell you, buddy, there's some heavy hitters in this movie. Can't wait to talk about it. As we said, directed by the great Tim Burton, screenplay by Daniel Waters, story by Daniel Waters and Sam Hamm, who worked on the first Batman movie as well. Batman, of course, created by Bob Kane, and yes, Bill Finger, give the man his props. Well deserved. The release date for this movie, June 16th, 1992 in Hollywood, June 19th, 1992, United States release. Total running time, 126 minutes. The budget for this film is around 50 to 80 million. That's a big swath, right? 50 to 80 million. The box office, $266.8 million. And that is the lowdown for Batman Returns. Phil, we're going to give it away here in the beginning and let everybody out there know you told me, you self-described as a defender of Batman Returns. So as we kick off, let's start there. First off, how often do you watch this? Is it in your rotation? Is it in your holiday rotation? And why are you setting yourself up as the defender of Batman Returns?
It's not in my regular rotation. I feel like I watch it every now and then, and I enjoy it just as much. But it's a big nostalgia factor because it's a big part of my childhood. I remember going to the movies to see it. I think I went and saw it at a drive-in. I remember being super excited. I remember having almost all of the toys. I had the Batmobile from this thing. I had the submarine. I love this movie as a kid. Like, it's such a big part of my childhood. And so a big part of my defense of it is nostalgia. I will willingly admit that. But also, I've come to appreciate the movie a lot more as an adult. Because it is a Christmas movie. And the thing that makes it such a good Christmas movie is the reason why I'm sure we will probably never get another Tim Burton Batman movie.
Mm.
Because he came in with all these lofty ideas. He came in wanting to do this dark Batman movie that focused on the weird and grotesque side of Gotham and focused on the weird and cynical view of being an adult during Christmas time. I saw somebody recently on Blue Sky explain why a Charlie Brown Christmas has this kind of tone of loneliness and depression around it. And when you really think of it, that is a big tone of the Charlie Brown Christmas movie.
It is.
I would submit that that is also a big theme of this movie, of isolation and identity. And it's something that Tim Burton has done multiple times throughout his career, because he has 3 Christmas movies, right? Might be more, but I mean, technically, Edward Scissorhands is not a Christmas movie. There are Christmas themes in it. It takes place at one point in Christmas.
Right.
Nightmare Before Christmas, and of course, Batman Returns. I don't know if you've ever noticed this. In all 3 movies, a very similar thing happens. Certain character comes out of isolation, tries to conform to Christmas and be like everybody else. And by the end of the movie, or the climax of the movie, that person gets literally ran away by an angry mob back into their hole.
Dude, you're killing me. I never connected the dots on that.
Look at it. In this movie, Penguin comes out, gets ran back into the sewer by an angry mob. Nightmare Before Christmas, Jack Skellington leaves Halloween Town, comes to the normal world. By the end of his escapades in the normal world, he gets ran back to Halloween Town by an angry mob of police officers. Edward Scissorhands, he leaves the castle and tries to enjoy life in suburban America. By the end of it, gets ran back to the castle by an angry mob. It happens in all 3 movies.
Right, you're right.
And so I do think there's this theme throughout of isolation and identity. And there's kind of this theme of, hey, this big monster lives in this cave and in the dark, and he comes out in the light and he tries to see what's out there, but he doesn't understand he's a monster until everybody points out that he's a monster.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
And part of him going back into the cave and being fine is understanding that this is who I am. And that very much happens with the Penguin character here. He comes back to the sewer and goes, my name is not Oswald Cobblepot. I am the Penguin. I am not a human being. I am an animal. Cold-blooded.
Yes.
It very much happens here. Same thing with Jack Skellington. He's like, hey, man, I tried my best. I had fun, but I belong there. I belong in Halloween Town. And if you want to tie this all up with Christmas, I think with Christmas, we all have this rose-colored glass of being a kid and how magical Christmas feels.
Yes.
And how much you have all these great memories about being a kid and waking up on Christmas morning and opening the gifts and spending time with your family. But when you become an adult, all that magic goes away and it's all work. It's all work putting this together for a kid so that they can enjoy it. Because Christmas isn't really for us. It's really for the kids to enjoy.
What's that meme? Don't grow up. It's a trap, right?
Yes. Yeah. And so there is a big part of Christmas in this. It might be part of me identifying a lot with it as an adult that is single, doesn't have kids. And the older I get, the more I understand how depressing Christmas is for people. Because if you don't have kids, it doesn't feel as magical. And then you start losing people and you don't see the same people every Christmas. You don't get to spend it with some of the same family you grew up spending Christmas with because they're no longer here. And there's a big part of this movie that is the same thing. The first time we see Bruce in this movie, it's him sitting alone in the dark. And then we see the signal come on. And the end of this movie, well, let me not leave out the middle. The beginning is that he comes out, Same thing, same theory of him coming out of his cave and trying to enjoy Christmas with everybody else. He finds a kindred spirit in Selena Kyle, and it doesn't work out. And by the end of the movie, he ends up alone on Christmas.
It's true, with Alfred in the car.
Yeah. To tie this back with my theme of the monster coming out of the cave, you have the line of Penguin telling him, "You're just jealous. You're just jealous that I'm a real freak and you have to put on a mask."
Right.
He doesn't understand that he's more like the criminals that he chases than he's willing to admit.
Of course. As is usually the case with every version of Batman to some degree.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is why Joker sees him as a kindred spirit. It's like, stop trying to act like them. You're not like them. You're like me.
Well, speaking of the version of Batman, we did the Flash movie here because, oh God, but we did it because Michael Keaton's in it, because he finally got a proper send-off.
Yes.
But we can agree, Phil, that this is not the traditional Bruce Wayne in the sense of this guy traveled the world, learned how to fight. Because there's moments when Catwoman, who doesn't know how to fight, she's just a zombie cat lady.
Zombie cat lady.
Is roundhouse kicking him like Jason Statham on a rooftop, and he's getting hurt. And I'm like, this is not the guy that traveled the world learning how to fight from Ra's al Ghul, man.
Yes. Very different version of Batman. Love this version of Batman, of course, but
sure,
very different. Yeah, I hope people enjoyed my tirade about Christmas being depressing and Tim Burton trying to do a movie that talks about isolation and identity, because identity is a big part of this movie as well. Of them,
absolutely.
To the two characters really three characters, dealing with the duality of their identities and understanding by the end of it, this is who I am. Like, I can't run from it.
And by the way, let me validate your tirade, if I may. You know I'm wacky about Christmas. You've seen me in a Santa hat on a podcast or two. It's my thing. I love it. My tree goes up on November 1st every year. But you know when that started? The year my son was born.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the year after, technically. Brother, I hated Christmas. I hated it. Anybody that knew me would tell you, Tom hates it. Don't even talk about it. I couldn't hear the music. I didn't care about a tree. I swear to God, hated it. Then my son was born. And I'm going to get choked up thinking about it. But I said out loud, I don't want my son growing up seeing a father that hates Christmas. I just didn't. And so I didn't do it as much for me as I did it for him. So I said, F it, I'll just embrace it. And dude, I freaking love it now. Like I totally freaking, for real, love it. But it took that for me to change.
Yes. And now, this is the part where Warner Brothers probably saw this movie and was like, it's not just the themes and the dark stuff, people actually dying in this movie. There are some pretty, like, when you really think about some of the deaths in this movie, it's crazy. But the thing that, when you look at what Batman is for Warner Brothers, this is a big cash cow for them. This is capitalism. And there are big parts of this movie that are anti-capitalism, anti-corporate. And that's kind of funny because he's making this Christmas movie and in his own way telling you, like, hey, all of this hokey baloney stuff that television and corporate tells you Christmas is about, that's not real. You've got this very greedy corporate industry guy coming out saying he's Santa Claus and he believes in goodwill towards men, but in reality, he's a terrible person. And there's almost, well, not even almost, there is a straight up anti-commercialism vibe to this movie. Catwoman literally blows up a shopping mall.
She does. Yeah. No, you're right. By the way, Max Schreck, we hadn't gotten to the cast yet. Did you get vibes of a certain corrupt politician who's about to take over the country again from this guy?
Absolutely. But I think it's because there are so many characters in fiction that you can link to him. There's also a big Mr. Burns vibe of him trying to blot out the sun. His whole plan with the electric company is very much Mr. Burns trying to blot out the sun.
I'll tell you who's the unsung hero of this film is his son. Max Schreck's son is a hero. Like, remember that scene? He stepped right up. Like, that kid's not a coward. He may not be a good dude. You could tell his dad probably bailed him out of some stuff and some shady stuff. He got in trouble or whatever. Dude, I'd forgotten how actually brave that kid was in this movie, man.
Yes.
Crazy.
And I hope also for this tirade, because I'm not trying to say that Tim Burton hates Christmas. I just think that he's making his version of a Christmas movie. And there are some very smart ideas in there when you really dig into it as an adult and understand it. Of course, as a kid, you're not going to understand it. But I mean, it's kind of the same way with Iron Man 3 and Shane Black making a Christmas movie built around its main character being depressed.
No, it's true. That one's in the archives too, kids. And I enjoyed that movie. I still enjoy Iron Man 3.
Yeah. Love Iron Man 3. It's my favorite Iron Man movie, personally.
I don't get it. I don't like it as much as I like the first one, but it's my second favorite Iron Man movie. I think it's excellent.
Now, I do watch that on Christmas. That's become a tradition.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah.
I almost feel like people hating Iron Man 3 has made me love it even more.
Listen, you're talking to the king of, if too many people bag on something, I will tend to take that person's side because it's the underdog thing. I can't help myself, man.
Yeah.
Although Iron Man 3 is still a good movie, whether anybody likes it or not, I still like it. Well, I got a surprise for you. All right. And maybe it won't be a surprise. First off, I agree with your notion that there's nostalgia attached to this movie. I made clear on the Batman 89 episode that I couldn't wait to see that. I had friends that couldn't wait to see it. I went to see it in the theater for when you could go see movies for $3, whatever it was. Yes, I'm dating myself. I saw it in the theater like 5 times, the first Batman, because I effing loved it. I saw this one in the theater I don't know how many times. I haven't seen this movie in years. In my opinion, I know how it's going to sound. This is not a great movie. It's not. I don't hate it, but it's not a great movie. There are so many moments in this movie that I let it slide because I was younger, and I loved Michael Keaton, and I loved Batman as a character. There's some crappy stuff in this movie that I'm like, if you made this movie today as a comic book film, it'd get laughed off the screen, in my opinion. Doesn't mean I hate the cast. Love the cast. I think it looks like they all had fun. There's some horrible moments in this movie where it's cringe almost. But it doesn't mean I hate the movie, Phil. I'm just being honest.
Yeah. I love this movie. I'm sorry. I love it. It's
fine. Yeah.
There's so many things I love about this movie. But I do think it's a big part of growing up with it. I mean, going and seeing this at the drive-in, the Happy Meal toys around it, the glasses, the McDonald's glasses, like there's so much around that time period in Batman that, man, it was just such a big part of my childhood. I love this movie, and I also am somebody that appreciates the weirdness to Gotham, and it's part of the disconnect for me with the Nolan movies. Like, as much as I love those movies too, I don't like that Gotham is too clean. It's like it shouldn't be grounded. It should be weird. It should be things like this. And I appreciate Tim Burton going full in on the weird side of the comics and going full in on how grotesque his rogues gallery is. I love that. Now, that probably, again, guarantees we'll never see another Tim Burton Batman movie,
right?
Because they're not going to let you do this dark, disgusting movie again and put it in front of kids. Because if you weren't there at the time, parents groups were absolutely protesting this movie. And that's part of the reason why, even though this movie did well financially, they did not bring Tim Burton back.
They did not. And I was getting ready to dive into the cast, but let me start with this, because you mentioned Tim Burton not coming back. And oh God, we don't need to talk about what happened in the other movies. Hoy.
Yeah.
But dude, to this day, I believe this movie should have been Billy Dee Williams as Two-Face.
Yeah, I think that Tim Burton should have at least got a trilogy.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about money and capitalism and commercialism, there was no way that Warner Brothers was going to let him come in and do another dark, disgusting movie like this. Yeah. And I keep saying disgusting because there are some very disgusting, gory things that happen in this movie that I'm surprised he got away with.
Hey, look, you pointed out we've been recording together for years at this point, Phil. But at some point when you first said it, I was like, wow, that's a great point. And you said it multiple times, and I continue to agree with you because it's a great point. This stuff was made for kids back in the day.
Yes.
It wasn't made for adults. So, like, is there too much of that here? Do you think there's enough of a, like Batman 89, in my opinion, there's enough of a balance between hokey comic book science and, you know, like the Joker pulling that big honking gun out of his trousers and shooting down the Batwing because reasons.
Which
But
I love that scene so much. Again,
no, it's classic.
It's a part
right?
of my childhood. And just
Sure.
like as a kid watching him pull out this big goofy gun. It's so stupid.
But do you think the balance in this movie is too much in one direction versus being in the middle?
I can understand as an adult watching this and thinking, you cannot put this in front of a kid. But there's so much that I understand he's doing. And it could be that like I connect with Tim Burton as a creative and I just appreciate what he's doing. With just the art and just like the way he's trying to blend in how hokey and silly the comic books are and the 60s TV show, and also adding like this in your face violence and ridiculousness to it. And so as a kid, I loved it. Like penguins walking around with rockets on their back, like it's all ridiculous. Like it's totally ridiculous. And as a kid, it didn't bother me at all because I'm not looking at it like, oh, that's violent. Like as an adult, I looked at it like, oh, that's disgusting. Like penguin just eating raw fish, that's disgusting. But as a kid, I didn't think of it like, oh, this is crazy. I'm a kid watching the penguin be weird and grotesque.
Right.
And I loved it because it's just so different. It's so like, I don't think we'll ever see a Batman movie like this ever again.
I think you're right. This seems more like a carnival Batman than it does anything else.
Yeah, Batman is too much of a cash cow for Warner Brothers. It's too much of a business. It has to be family friendly in some ways. Even as dark as the last few Batman movies have been, it still in some ways has to be family friendly. So there's always going to be a line.
Yeah. Well, apart from the gross aspects, there are just moments that are just so incredibly cornball that it's just when she eats the bird and she's, for what seems like an hour, she's rubbing her stomach. And I'm like, are we going to cut from this?
No.
Right? No, never. Like, what are we doing?
But see, I think that's part of the charm of this. And it's also because I was a big fan of the 60s show. Loved the 60s show. Very campy, very stupid, very silly, but I loved it. I used to come home and watch it all the time because it was on. They were running reruns all the time on regular TV. We didn't have cable. So I used to watch the 60s Batman show almost every day. And I can see the immediate influences in both the Burton movies. Like the big gun, that is something straight out of those wacky Batman shows. And it's the same thing here. He does the bomb bit. He does the bomb bit of how do I get rid of bomb? Turns out you just use it to kill somebody. Okay.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, because he flat out killed that clown. That's murder. Like,
but there's so much stuff here that it's so bad that it's funny. It's so over the top and campy that it's funny. Man, Penguin has so many lines that would not work anywhere else, but they're so funny in this movie. Danny DeVito is fantastic in this movie. Talk about a guy that just completely buys in and is just like chewing scenery, just completely selling all this stuff with conviction. He's fantastic. Same reason Michelle Pfeiffer is also great because she completely buys in.
And by the way, DeVito gets lost. Like, I forgot. You forget it's DeVito under all that makeup, man.
Yes. But yeah, the disgusting stuff like him. And again, there's certain things about Tim Burton's humor and there's cynicism to it, of course. But like the idea that this grotesque, disgusting sewer urchin of a mob boss is not the most disgusting and mean-spirited person in the room with all of these corporate people and politicians is incredible satire. Like standing next to Max seems worse than him in several scenes in this movie. Like to tell you like, oh, this is just this misguided guy that his parents threw him away. But Max, you have no reason to be this way. You grew up in good surroundings, and you're a terrible person.
Right.
He's in this room with all of these people that are trying to prep him for a political run and run for mayor. And this guy immediately runs up to him and just says something incredibly mean, like, "Hey, no mirrors in the sewer, huh?"
Right. Yeah.
Look how rude was that? And of course, Penguin being Penguin, gives the great line of response. Well, at least my nose isn't gushing blood. And they're all trying to fake laugh around him because, of course, these people are dumb and idiots. And he bites the guy's nose, and it's very graphic. He's gushing blood. It's part of what I mean of like, this is so like in your face, violent and disgusting. But
Yes.
it's so funny in that moment because, again, these people that he's in a room with, you would think that he's the worst person in that room. He should stand out. But meanwhile, he's around all of these phony, corrupt people. They're trying to prep this guy to run for mayor. This guy.
Prepping a monster to hold political office for. Who would have thunk it?
Yes, and taking it seriously.
Yes.
It's so funny, man. There's also the scene where at the end, and he comes to the party and he explains to them, like, this is what Christmas is to you guys. You tuck your kids in comfortably so you can go out and get loaded and juiced and dance badly.
Yeah.
It's such great commentary on adults and adult behavior.
Man, he's fantastic. And we're talking about the cast, of course. Danny DeVito's the Penguin. He is what I love. What I'd forgotten was the Mick Foley stuff that he does throughout the movie with the sound effects. Remember in Foley's matches? Ha-cha! You know, every time he hit, there's so many times DeVito's going, like there's a whole film, dude. The little nuanced stuff. Yes. It's such a great touch. When he's eating the fish, he doesn't know what's happening.
And she's trying to put the gloves on him. Let's just put these on. Yeah, he does that, man. The way that he completely buys in. The noises he makes, the way he yells, and he has like those tirades, and his one-liners are so great. There's always a guy that brings produce to a political speech for some reason.
Oh man!
Or he's very horny in this movie for some reason. I didn't notice that until I got older. Like, why is he so horny all the time?
He is the whole film. Yeah.
Well, I guess it makes sense. This is a kid that grew up in a sewer, and he ain't no women. So
well, there's women, but we don't know if he's doing anything with them.
Yeah, so he's very horny, and there's so many scenes where he says something that is extremely inappropriate, but he's supposed to be just this disgusting guy. And it fits so perfectly because he's so terrible, and Max is just like, "Yep, next mayor."
Right, of course, yeah.
He's outright talking about, we can reach out and touch somebody. We can reach out and grope somebody.
Yeah.
Boy, who does that sound like?
And he goes to put the campaign button on the girl's shirt. I mean, just man, God, man, so
nasty. He has so many scenes like that where he's making those noises, and it's so uncomfortable. And he can't possibly just see in those scenes with Catwoman why she would be repulsed by him at all, which is also funny because she's just like, I wouldn't touch you to scratch you, and he's just like, you minx, I should have you spaded. You were giving me all signals.
Oh man, you know, speaking of Catwoman and Penguin here, dude, this does establish what came to be in other franchises for the other company too. This idea of the 1-2 punch of two villains in the same movie. Had we seen that to this point in a comic book film? I mean, unless you count the three, General Zod, Non, and Ursula, I guess.
Technically Superman 2, because Lex is a villain.
That's true. That's fair. Yeah.
So, technically Superman 2 before that. But no, this movie was extremely influential. I mean, the Cheetah character in Wonder Woman is outright influenced by this.
Yeah.
There's no getting around it. It's outright influenced by this. Riddler and Batman Forever also very much influenced by the nerd character becoming the villain.
Yes. And by the way, because I'm watching it back again right now. One of those moments that you're like, murder committed, people die. He watched that Snow Queen chick go over the side of the building. Didn't throw down the back like a grappling hook. Like we saw the Christian Bale Batman dive off the top of the building.
Rachel.
Yes. And Batman's just like, uh-oh, she's falling. What do I do? You can just watch her die. That's fine.
Turns around. Whoops.
Oop. And they're like, Batman puts her off the building. I'm like, yeah, well, man, he didn't save her, did he? Oh my God.
That's what I was talking about earlier. Very dark. She just outright dies. And I don't think I ever put two and two together as an adult because she doesn't go splat. She lands on the button in a very comical way.
Yes.
To make it more palatable, but she died.
She's dead. You ain't gonna walk that off. The cats didn't bring her back to life, Phil.
Yeah. And now, the thing that I love about it that I didn't pick up for a long time was Catwoman taking part of that, and Catwoman earlier in the movie getting thrown off of a building and nearly dying, and then on her jacket now she allowed that to happen to another woman. That's why when she's having a drink with Penguin later, she's saying, "You said you were just going to scare her."
Right? Yeah. She looked pretty scared to me. What a great line, by the way.
So many great one-liners for him. One of my favorite lines from him as well is when he's going over his plan to take all the firstborn, and the one guy's like, "Isn't that a little?" And then he comes out and shoot him. No, it's a lot.
Yeah. By the way, the clown gang, are we led to believe that this is the remnants of the Joker's clown gang from the first movie? Because they don't even really look like them.
No, they give us the explanation when Bruce Wayne immediately is suspicious of this guy because he's sitting at home watching this guy.
Right.
And it's again the Christmas themes and isolation. He knows what it's like to grow up without parents. And so on one level, he connects with Oswald as an orphan. And so when he first sees it on TV, he's saying, "Oh boy, I hope he finds his parents." And
right, yeah.
Later, he's like, "Nah, something's off about him," because he knows as an orphan and what it did to him, not having his parents, and how it changed his way of looking at the world. Now, something's off about this guy. And so when he starts looking through the clippings and he's reading about the circus that took him in, they're not remnants of Joker's gang. They're a circus that took Oswald in.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I forgot what he calls them. The Red Triangle.
Something like that,
circus or something like that.
By the way, look, Catwoman. All right, look. We're kids when this comes out. I'm older than you are, right? When this, all right. But either way, I got pushed out of a window. As she becomes a problem, I'll push it out of a higher window, right? But great line. But the cats bring this chick back to life. All right, look. On what planet is she not dead? Right? I don't. Am I just supposed to let it go, Phil, and just call it comic book science, and that's it?
So, again, made it comical to make it more palatable that she falls through all of these awnings.
Right, which slows down her descent, apparently.
And so that visual of her like ripping through all of these awnings and then landing doesn't break any bones. Her head remains intact.
Yes.
There's no blood other than like the scar on her forehead where she's bleeding out. Like she does not go splat. There's no way she wouldn't have gone splat from falling that high. Like physics just don't work that way.
Right.
There's no way. Well, and then first of all, at the height she fell, she would have been dead before she hit the ground.
Oh, sure.
But yeah, no broken bones, none of this. The cats just come and lick and breathe life on her, chew on her a little bit, and then she just gets up.
And then suddenly she sounds like this for the rest of the movie. Like, yeah. What? Now you're hot with great teased hair? What happened?
Yeah. But again, anti-commercialism. She gets up and her whole house is littered with all these trinkets, doll houses, and all these other things.
Right.
And there's kind of this moment of her growing up, like her being violated by a man, and it forced her to grow up and be like, no, I'm leaving all of this little girl stuff. I'm a woman now.
Yeah, because she takes it back to the place and destroys it. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Look, so the suit. We have to give props to the suit because, wow, number one. Number two, wow again. Number three, this suit was vacuum sealed. And once she was fitted into it for scenes, so she actually only had a short amount of time to perform before she would have to have it opened, or she could become lightheaded and pass out.
Wow.
Dude. By the way, totally worth it. Because look at her, right?
Looks, and of course, at that age, I didn't understand
Sure.
what I was looking at, but possibly the hottest Michelle Pfeiffer has ever been.
It's absolutely the hottest Michelle Pfeiffer has ever been.
She has a very Madonna vibe going throughout this movie with the way her hair is. By the time she becomes Catwoman, that could not have been coincidence.
No.
And very S&M outfit.
Yes.
With the whip and everything.
And by the way, kids, it's 2024 as we record this. We're two very socially conscious dudes. So I'm not trying to make it sound like we're fawning over this girl. She's a great freaking actor. And I'm a big fan of the suit. I can't help it. I'm a fan of her in the suit.
But I mean, that's a big part of the Catwoman character is her being attractive and all these things. But yeah, Michelle Pfeiffer played this role incredibly well.
Oh man, crushed it.
She does both sides, the mousy secretary very well. She gets you to like this character when she's doing all of the bits of talking to herself, and she gets you to not feel sorry for her, but you like her. Yeah. And so when she becomes Catwoman, you like her even more because it's like, yeah, she's getting vengeance. These people deserve this. She doesn't feel like so much a villain in this movie. She's an antagonist.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Yeah, she's, again, I can't say enough good things about her. She's fantastic here. And I mean, the scenes when it's just her and Bruce out of costume, her and Michael Keaton, dude, they have chemistry, man. It's
fantastic chemistry.
I think it's more than he had with Kim Basinger in the first film.
Yeah, the first scene where he's taken back where he's like, yeah, we've met before, and she's like, when? And he's like, never mind, no, that was somebody else.
Yeah, because he says, I mistook me for someone else, I think is what he said.
Yeah, completely forgot he was in costume first time. Sure. Which is a funny thing that they do multiple times with them throughout the movie of them like, oh yeah, I have the secret to cover. And he's kind of like so into her that he's kind of like stumbling across himself. He's like this big billionaire.
Yes.
And he's around her. He's like bumbling around. And he's not like that with Vicky at all.
No.
And so I've always thought that like Batman and Catwoman belong together. They're kindred spirits. They belong together. He's like, she's his Mary Jane. They belong together. And so when she's talking to him getting into the elevator and he's like trying to like stumble around and ask her on a date, and she's just like, nope, I got work. And he's like, wait, I'm leaving. Like literally I'm leaving because the elevator's closing, going down. Which is such a great exchange. The dialogue in that is so well written. The dialogue in all of their exchanges, both in costume and together outside of costume, is so good. I love the scene where he goes to stop her from kidnapping the beauty queen, and they have that exchange of she's like, I'm starving, and he's like, eat floor. High fiber.
Protein. High fiber, yeah. God, terrible. I mean, when they're in the house and she's like, girlfriend? He goes, yeah, sure. Oh, you mean like such a schoolboy thing to do, right? He thought she was hitting on him.
Yeah, oh, sure. I mean, no. And his explanation of the Vicky Vale and why Vicky Vale didn't work is perfect as well, of him not explaining, but explaining like she just could not get used to me splitting my time with her and having two different lives. She couldn't understand that there was a part of me that I would always keep from her. And there was a part of me that she would never be able to reach. But that's what makes Selena special, because they're the same. And that's what he understands towards the end of the movie, that he can't get her to see.
Yeah. And it's, Let me guess. You're one of those guys that kept things from her. No, I told her everything. That was great. The way he delivered that line was perfect.
Yes. Yeah. Everything about it is great. And him trying to explain like why she's different and why he wouldn't do this. And she makes the first move.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
All of that, the stuff around the fireplace, great. The stuff with them in costume and the chemistry that they have, even in costume. But of course, the best scene with them is in the gala, and he's trying to explain to her, no, you don't need to do this vengeance. Not just because he really likes her, but also he's like, vengeance is not the way. Trust me, I know. I can't tell you how I know right now, but you don't need to do this.
I think the best scene in the film is when they realize on the dance floor who each other really is.
Yeah. And he's trying to he's telling her who he really is.
Yes.
To try to reach her, like, you don't need to get vengeance.
Yeah.
Because he could be very much the same way of driven by vengeance, but he's not driven by that. He's driven by justice. And, we can get into why in some ways this isn't like the perfect depiction of Batman, but that is Batman. Him seeing Oswald coming out of the sewer and connecting with him as a kid that lost his parents, that's Batman. Him trying to reason with her, knowing what vengeance did to him, that's Batman.
Dude, I think this is the best Marvel version of Batman I've ever seen. Right, because if we want to compare to Bell and the way Batman's traditionally written in the books, is that Bruce Wayne is a mask. Bruce Wayne's not a real person. He's Batman, period. But this Batman, Phil, this Bruce Wayne can put it on and take it off. He can be a normal guy. His Bruce Wayne is not a billionaire playboy philanthropist. His Bruce Wayne sounds like Batman. His Bruce Wayne is serious. He fights for causes. He takes on Shrek nose to nose. Like, he puts on that suit and takes it off and wants to have a normal life outside of it.
Yeah, the mission will always will always be more important than everything. And that's part of why him and Vicky was never going to work either.
Yeah.
But Selina's different. Selina is like me. Like, I understand you. Like, I understand you more than anybody else does. And finding somebody that he feels like he understands, and like they immediately have chemistry, they immediately connect because they're the same people, split right down the middle, like he says. And she just can't let go of her hurt. She can't let go of her pain to be with him.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about how great she looks, and we should, because she looks fantastic. Let me say this, because this is awesome. Warner Brothers had to constantly submit new Catwoman posters for various cities, as many of the bus stop ads were being stolen. It got so bad that police officers had to patrol bus stops in order to catch perpetrators before they could break the plexiglass containers. The large-scale Catwoman bus ads are now worth a great deal of money.
Wow.
Wonderful.
Yeah, what a different time, man.
Right?
What a different time. But yeah, man, Michelle Pfeiffer is amazing in this movie. Great acting. I think when you get past the weird stuff, like her acting very much like a cat in costume and licking herself or trying to eat a bird, this is a great depiction of Catwoman, because they nail like the dichotomy of both of these characters and why these two characters would fall for each other.
You're right. And talking about how she looks, real quick, what do you think about how the Penguin looks in this film?
Boink Studios is the home of Tom Clark's Main Event, Tom Clark's 6M podcast, and Two Nations Under Ted, a Ted Lasso podcast. Visit the site today for links to every podcast platform, social media, special announcements, and a lot more. Check out the site and bookmark today, boinkstudios.com.
His whole motif, the way he looks, the hair, the clothes, the mouth, it's always black. I mean, what do you think? Is it too much?
I love the idea that, and I've always liked this idea in the comics and when they do it in the movies, that Joker changed Gotham, because Gotham was corrupt and it was ran by mob bosses and criminals. But when the freaks took over, everything changed. And Penguin has always been a character that, despite his deformities, he thinks he is in some ways above all of that. And having him be from wealth and be a blue collar criminal in some ways, but also he's like a sewer urchin. So when you have him coming up and then doing the comic accurate, the suits with the lapels, and they even try and give him the cigarette holder at some point, he pushes it away, the big top hat. I think all of that stuff looks perfect. When he's on the big rubber duck with the umbrella guns and the big gadgets and stuff, that is perfect Penguin. The jackets and stuff with like the fur collars and everything looks pitch perfect. Looks completely comic accurate to me. I love it. Now, some people would not like the webbed hands and stuff and some of the weirdness, but I think it's part of the charm. And because Danny DeVito plays the character so well, and he makes him this very despicable, disgusting guy, but also he plays it well when you do try to put the opulence around him and he tries to fake it. It just works. And I think that's what works about the current iteration of Penguin and the Matt Reeves stuff. It's, of course, a more grounded version, but it's like you're putting on all of these things because you feel like you deserve the opulent side of this. But deep down, you are where you're from. You are like, you're trash. Like, in a lot of ways, like it's there's an adage about a lot of nerds and outcasts that were spurned their entire lives, and how people didn't like them because they were different. But like their resentment towards the way that they were outcasts made the inside match the outside at some point. And that's exactly what Penguin is.
Yeah, that's true. That's great. Yeah, that's good.
You're supposed to feel for him, but he becomes a bad person.
Sure.
And he didn't have to become a bad person. That's what separates him and Batman. Bruce could easily be a bad person too, but Penguin is deciding to be a monster.
And I love what you said about how the Joker brought the freaks out. Like, you know, that would have been some nice connective tissue if at some point Penguin would have said something to the effect of, well, you know, the other guys made it pretty easy. I want to be out there too. You know what I mean? Like a throwaway line, because they did reference the first film a few different times here.
Yes.
It was it's going to be a hot time in the old town tonight. Yeah. That line was used. And there was something else. I forget off the top of my head, but something that referenced the other movie. Oh, when Bruce says, by the way, who let Vicky Vale to the Batcave? I'm just sitting there working. All of a sudden, look up, there she is.
I love that. You're talking to me about security.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Yeah. There's other stuff here too, here and there. That's really good. Danny DeVito, by the way, we're talking about how he looks. His makeup as the Penguin took 3 hours to be applied every morning. Removed one of the cabinets in the makeup trailer and put in a Laserdisc machine and a television. While they were putting on the makeup, he brought in his favorite movies and watched them in the mirror.
That's great. But
something to do.
When you add the monocle and stuff on top of him in the makeup, it looks pitch perfect. I love it.
And by the way, we saw Paul Rubens portray his father, the great Pee Wee Herman. That was supposed to have been Burgess Meredith as the Penguin from the old TV show, but he was ill at the time of this movie was made.
Ah, that's too bad. I did not know that. I would have loved to seen him show up.
Great. Oh, that voice. That voice. Oh, man.
Yeah. He's synonymous with Penguin to me. Even more so in some ways than like Rocky, of course. But again, I've watched the 60s show a lot.
Yeah, same. Yeah. Michael Keaton, of course, we all know why we're here. Michael Keaton's why we're here. And the man of the hour, the man himself. The suit's a little bit different this time, Phil, than it was in the other movie. The bat is the more traditional bat, whereas the other one, the tail was square at the bottom. Mm-hmm. And also, this version of the suit does not have abs. It has plates. And something that we didn't see this time that Michael Keaton asked to be added was a zipper to the pants. So they added one for obvious reasons.
Yes, I'm sure. Because once you want to get out of that thing, you got to get out of it.
Well, and plus, you know, it's time to when it's time, when you got to go.
No, that's what I'm saying. Once I need to get out of it to go, I need to get out of it.
If you got to go in style, right?
Yeah, I think the Batsuit ages well. I think the Batsuit in this movie looks good. Of course, there's the jokes about him not being able to turn his neck.
Sure.
When he has to try to get out of the cowl, he has to literally rip himself out of it.
And by the way, the eye black is gone in that scene, which is weird.
Yeah. But I think like the way that Burton lights the suit and the way that he looks in a lot of the scenes at night, he looks great. Like the way the shadows come across on his face, the way you can barely see his eyes, you can see why he's terrifying in this suit. He doesn't look like just a man in a suit. Sometimes he comes across like this big, like dark figure, and it works. Like when he does pull up the wings and jumps off the building, just how it, you can just see the silhouette. It doesn't look like a human.
Yeah. This is the most comics accurate depiction of Batman in the suit that we've ever gotten. I think Christian Bale in the suit is a real world tech Batman suit, which is fine, but that's not going to scare anybody in that thing.
Yes. So I love the way the suit looks in this movie. I love Keaton's depiction of Bruce Wayne. Because I do, like you said earlier, I love that he isn't just a guy that does the stuff in the suit. He actually stands up to Max as Bruce Wayne as well. And he has good intentions outside. I mean, even when he's trying to appeal to Selina and try to do all these other things, this is just well-meaning Bruce Wayne. He doesn't need to put that suit on to be the hero. Like, he is also trying to be the heart and soul of Gotham outside of the suit.
By the way, speaking of the suit, you're going to love this because all these years I didn't know this. Batman is not wearing boots in the movie. They are Air Jordan 6s connected to an upper, which give the boot-like feeling.
Yes, I knew that. I
did not know that. Shut up. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Man. It looked like, it's almost like kick pads on wrestlers' boots now. You know what I mean? That's what it reminds me of.
Yeah, I knew that because I've seen like the physical boots a few times. I've seen like the making of the boot. It's just like the Green Goblin's boot where the Nike AirPods.
Right. Yeah, I knew that bit. Oh, that's fun.
But yeah, man, I love Bruce Wayne and Batman in this movie. What Michael Keaton does with it, in some ways, I think it's his best work as Batman. Honestly.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, the cat suit that we were talking about earlier. By the way, back to that, was so tight that Michelle Pfeiffer often had trouble hearing her own voice. Wow. So Tim Burton had to tell her to lower her voice register because she would often be shouting her dialogue instead of just saying it.
That is great.
Wonderful. By the way, she was not the first choice to play the character. If anyone knows their trivia, she was not the first choice. Annette Bening was cast as Catwoman originally, but got pregnant and was replaced. Pfeiffer got $3 million to play Catwoman, and Annette Bening was offered $1 million. So take from that what you will. Doesn't seem fair, but okay. Not fair to Bening anyway, but yeah.
Worked out pretty well, that Michelle Pfeiffer.
Sure. Bening's great too, by the way. So
yeah, I just couldn't imagine this movie without Michelle Pfeiffer, though.
Same, yeah. I'm sure it still would have been great, but it's a different portrayal, no doubt.
Yeah. Also, Christopher Walken as Max. He's like, if you have seen people do their Christopher Walken impersonation, it sounds like he's the same guy in every movie. But there's something to how cold and wooden he is in this movie that fits perfectly. And he's so kind of like mustache twirling villain in this movie in a way that doesn't make sense. But it's so funny that, again, Tim Burton being cynical is making this big corporate industrialist guy the real villain of this movie. He's the real bad guy here. Like, he's worse than actual villains of the movie.
And Walken's dialed back a lot here, isn't he?
Yes. But yeah, his delivery of so many lines is just hilarious. When Selina takes off the mask and he's like, "Selina Kyle, you're fired."
Yeah. Why Bruce Wayne? Why is he just like Batman? Because he is Batman, you moron. Well, the thing about Walken that has always been the case, and you know this, the listeners and the viewers know it too, is that whereas you would say it's cold outside for a normal cadence, Walken's cadence is all over the map. It's cold outside because each word is pronounced, it never flows, Phil, which is signature Christopher Walken.
Yes. And he does several things here that make him feel hollow and hokey, but that's the point.
Yes.
He is supposed to feel inhuman and robotic in some ways.
Yes.
I mean, when he's trying to give the speech at the beginning of the movie about Christmas, it's the reason why he can't run for mayor. Because if he wanted to just do these things and run himself, he could, but they're not going to vote for him. While people respect him, they can't connect to him because he's not a special interest story.
Yeah, it's well said. Yeah. By the way, speaking of Walken's cadence, you know the Dave Grohl story about how he introduced Foo Fighters on Saturday Night Live?
Yes.
It's wonderful, kids. In case you don't know, he asked them beforehand which word has the emphasis because he wanted to be able to introduce them correctly. Dave Grohl tells him the emphasis is on the word fighters because he knew that Walken was going to say, "Ladies and gentlemen, Foo Fighters," which he did. It's great.
A legend, man. Absolute legend. He is fantastic in this movie as well. Yes. Unintentionally funny in some scenes, very hokey and hammy in this movie, but he's so great. He's so great in his role. Also, I can't think of the actor's name at the moment that reprises his role as Alfred. Also fits perfectly with this movie. He's great. His expressions at times when Bruce comes in and is trying to make up an excuse for why he has to leave, and he's just sitting there listening to it and trying to keep up with it. And he's like, I'll relay the message, sir.
Yes.
and then she does the exact same thing because of course they're kindred spirits, and she's trying to explain why she has to leave, and then she's just like, just write him a sonnet for me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's Michael Go, that is from the 89 Batman. And this is, he did return as Alfred in the Val Kilmer.
Yes. But
I can't recall if he returned in the highly forgettable George Clooney film.
Did he? Isn't the storyline that he's dying in that movie?
That's right. How did I forget that? Because I hate that movie, and I've only seen it twice ever.
Yeah. How can you forget Clooney coming in there with the deadpan? He's dying, Dick.
Yes. No kidding. By the way, I think it's Goff. We may have been mispronouncing it for years here, Phil. I think it's Michael Goff.
Yeah, he's great here.
He's great.
He fits perfectly with this. And I just don't see how you wouldn't possibly see the influences to the 60s show. When they go down into the cave and, like you said, he gives the line about security and how he let Vicky Vale right in. And then they go down there and they do their plot to stop the mayoral campaign. And it's a very Batman 60s way of doing it. He has the CD player with the Bat logo on there, which is absolutely something they would have did in the 60s show.
Of course.
Why does he have a CD player with the Batman logo on it? And everything about it is so comical. He does a record scratch on the CD.
Oh. Great stuff, man. Yeah, there is again, I don't want to talk about the other movies because I have no intention of ever covering those films, but this has the Batman 60s vibe in a good way in parts. I don't think it's too much. Well, you could argue it's too much, but it's a throwback anyway.
Yeah, which I love this scene, by the way, of both him taking over the Batmobile, and I had the Batmobile where you press the button at the top and it breaks down into the cylinder. So I'm telling you, I had almost all the toys from this movie. So I love that scene when he's on the screen and he's talking to him, and Batman's the whole time trying to figure out what happened. By the way, totally ridiculous how this happened. The circus comes and they're putting this device on the Batmobile. They've got like the Batmobile taken apart in pieces, doing all this mechanics to it out in the middle of the street in front of everybody.
And they're all suddenly really smart and know how to do this.
Exactly. It's so ridiculous.
This high-tech car, right?
Yeah.
Like,
where did they get Batman blueprints from? Like,
yeah, where did they get Batman blueprints from?
Well, I guess you could make the argument that Penguin explained it earlier in the movie. You flush it, I find it.
Right.
Which that scene is so funny to me when at every turn where Max is like, "Oh, what? Yeah, I didn't do that." And he comes up with the shredded paper that he taped back together, a little tape and some patience.
Yes.
And then he talks, "Well, what happened to your partner?" "Oh, well, he had to take a trip." And he goes, "Look, remember me, Max? I'm such and such as hand."
Yeah. I'm Max's hand, wasn't it? Yeah. Oh my God, that's wonderful.
Tom Clark's 6M podcast is sponsored in part by Radius Law Group. Every day, Radius helps individuals, families, small businesses, and nonprofit organizations throughout North Carolina, Florida, and Pennsylvania resolve their legal issues by providing effective legal counsel in the areas of estate planning, as well as elder law and Medicaid. Radius Law holds the radical belief that working with a lawyer can indeed be enjoyable. So give them a call at 1-800-519-5667 for more information and tell them that Tom Clark's 6M podcast sent you.
Yeah, and it wasn't even a good joke, but the way he delivered it was great.
Hilarious. It's stupid and it should be funny, but his delivery of the lines makes it work. But yeah, the whole scheme with the Batmobile, and he's like running around the city trying to get control back, and the whole time Penguin's on the screen in this little trailer controlling it. It's so ridiculous, but man, I love it so much. Him yelling at it, and when he figures out that he got control again, and he just starts screaming in the camera,
yeah.
And Batman just punches the screen.
Him giving the speech to the penguins, and there were real penguins mixed in with props and robotic penguins happening. He's like, "We stand on a great threshold. It's okay to be scared. Many of you won't be coming back." And he talks about the time has come to punish all God's children, first, second, third, and fourth born. Why be biased? Male and female. The sexes are equal with their erogenous zones blown sky high. What in the world are we talking about?
Love it. He's for some reason turned into General Patton at this point with the penguins, and the penguins march out there with the rockets on their back. I love this movie, man. I'm sorry. I love this movie.
I enjoy it for nostalgia's sake, but man, this movie is... Oof. By the way, speaking of the penguins, the production wanted to use king penguins, but the only tame ones in captivity were at a bird sanctuary in the Cotswolds, deep in the English countryside. So the birds were flown over to the States in the refrigerated hold of a plane. They were given their own refrigerated trailer and swimming pool with half a ton of fresh ice every day and had fresh fish delivered daily straight from the docks. Even though the temp outside frequently topped 100 degrees, the entire set was refrigerated down to 35 degrees. The birds also had an around-the-clock bodyguard. The birds clearly enjoyed the experience, as following their stint in Hollywood, most of them had mated and produced eggs, the sure sign, the sign of a contented penguin. That's a great story.
My babies.
Oh, that's great. That's great. By the way, Michael Keaton got $10 million for this, which was $5 million more than he got for the first one. And I don't know if he would have got 10 here if Jack had come back.
Yeah.
Probably not. The Warner Brothers executives were very uneasy with this.
Yeah. Well deserved for Michael Keaton.
Yes.
Boy, I would have loved to see what Tim Burton could have done with Two-Face or Scarecrow. I think Tim Burton with Scarecrow would have been really great.
Oh, man. It would have been different for sure. And
wasn't that the rumor at one point that Scarecrow and Two-Face were going to be the villain for the third movie?
I think you're right. Something like that. Yeah. He had plans. I don't know if a script was written. I can't recall if a script was written. Crazy. Yeah. Well, we've also got, we mentioned Paul Rubens played his dad. Diane Salinger also played Penguin's mom. Very short bit. The guy that played Max's son, Chip, that we mentioned earlier, that is Andrew Brynarski, I think. This guy was actually Leatherface in the remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and the
Wow.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning. Yes.
I did not know that.
He was also, here's something else for you. He was Zangief in Street Fighter.
What a career.
Right? And Steve Latimer in The Program. So he's around. He's done some stuff.
That's great.
Yeah, right? That's crazy. Vincent Schiavelli, great character actor, Penguin's right-hand dude. Kids, if you know anything about, if you've ever watched Hollywood from the 80s up till now, then you've seen this guy. Because, Phil, this guy, great look for a villain, great look for a spooky villain. His career is freaking massive. We actually lost him in 2005 at age 57, way too early.
Yeah. He's the organ grinder guy, right?
He is. Man, dude,
Very creepy.
he started in 71 and he acted all the way up into his death, man. Like crazy.
Yeah.
TV and films.
Yeah, which, by the way, I love that his scheme is to send the circus out in their train to collect all of these kids, like the Pied Piper or something, and then he gets the note back from the monkey, like, nope, sorry, the kids are not coming. Signed, Batman.
He took the time to sign it. Wasn't it like a Batman stationery or something like
Yes,
that?
it was.
I mean, where'd he have that printed at? Someone printed that. He doesn't have a printing press at home that we know about. Oh, my. That's wonderful. Yeah, the Red Triangle Gang, you had it right, for sure. Anna Katerina was the poodle lady. That's the only thing we got for her. The strong man was Rick Zumwalt. The sword swallower was John Strong. The knife thrower was Erica Andrich. The acrobatic thug was Gary Scott Cummins. The terrifying clown was Branscombe Richard. And I think that's most of your cast there, kids. But we did not mention, Phil, the great Pat Hingle returns as James Gordon.
Yes.
Dude, Pat Hingle was a great actor. And just, did stuff. I mean, dude, this guy in Hollywood for years and years and years and years. And we lost him in 2009 at age 84, right? But there was moments when I'm like, this guy's a really good actor, Phil. Why is he not getting more to do? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Acrobatic clown, by the way, gives one of the best lines of the movie as well. when he takes the
Right.
kid and he flips down his tour, he goes, I'm not good at speeches, so I'll just say thanks. And then he flips away.
With a human baby, a backflip into the sewer. All right. Well,
Backflips into the sewer.
yeah. Well, that's believable. Yeah. Well, the duck. We saw the duck a lot, and what wasn't he kidnapped somebody? He's like, into the duck, right?
Get a duck. And a duck. It's Max when he's telling him to get in the duck at the party.
That's right. Yeah. Wow.
Penguin is so great when he's trying to twirl that umbrella at him early in the movie, and he says, "It's supposed to hypnotize me or something." No, it's supposed to give you a splitting headache.
Yeah.
He's like, "It's not working," and he shoots at him. He's like, "It's just a blank, you big baby."
Yeah. Oh, he's so goofy, but it works, Oh man, I believe the word you're looking for is and he starts screaming. That's so good. Oh, there's many moments when he just steals the show, man.
He's so great in this movie.
He is. He's not Colin Farrell. Talk about a completely different depiction of Penguin, but man.
Yeah. Also, has done some great acting in the movie and in the TV show. The Penguin show is very, very good.
I still haven't got into it, man.
I would highly recommend it. It's a great show.
By the way, we mentioned that we would like to, at least I did, I'm sure Phil agrees, would like to have seen Harvey Dent come back. The screenwriter we mentioned at the beginning of the show, Sam Hamm, his initial story did expand the character of District Attorney Harvey Dent, played by Billy Dee Williams, and his descent into the supervillain known as Two-Face. Warner Brothers wanted the main villain to be the Penguin, whom Hamm believed the studio saw as Batman's most prominent enemy after the Joker. Catwoman was added because Burton and Hamm were interested in the character. Hamm's drafts continued directly from Batman, focusing on the relationship between Wayne and Vicky Vale and their engagement. Oh, the Penguin was written as an avian-themed criminal who uses birds as weapons. Catwoman was more overtly sexualized, wore bondage gear, and nonchalantly murdered groups of men. The main narrative teamed Penguin and Catwoman to frame Batman for the murders of Gotham's wealthiest citizens in their pursuit of a secret treasure. Their quest leads them to Wayne Manor and reveals the Wayne secret history. Among other things, Ham originated the Christmas time setting and introduced Robin, Batman's sidekick, although his idea for assault rifle-wielding Santas was abandoned. Ham ensured that Batman did not kill anyone and focused on protecting Gotham's homeless. The two drafts produced by Ham failed to renew Burton's interest, and the director concentrated on directing Edward Scissorhands and writing The Nightmare Before Christmas instead. So, there you go. That, a much different movie, Phil, that we could have gotten there. I mean, I think it still would have been hopefully awesome, but a much different film.
I don't see the studio letting them do gun-wielding Santas.
No. But as we know, Burton did come back even after Nightmare Before Christmas. Or in the process of writing that, he did come back and direct the sequel in 91, with filming scheduled to begin later that year for a 92 release date. And that's when the movie that we're talking about today came to life. And so crazy. According to Denise Denovi, his longtime producer, only about 50% of Batman was Burton. The studio wanted Batman Returns to be more of a Tim Burton movie, a weirder movie, but also more hip and fun. Boy, they got what they asked for, didn't they?
They definitely. This is definitely a more Tim Burton movie.
Yeah.
In all of the good ways, in my opinion. But it's also, I may reiterate, why he is never gonna direct a Batman movie again.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why this movie is a cult classic. I don't think it's just nostalgia. I think there's so many things that he did with character here, with set design, with costume design, and with character building, and adding all of these other themes to it that we discussed that made this such a great movie.
Yeah, that's true. We mentioned Daniel Waters writing the story. He was hired to replace Ham because Byrne wanted someone with no emotional attachment to Batman and liked Waters' script for the dark comedy Heathers, which matched Burton's intended tone and creative direction. And Burton reportedly disliked Batman producer John Peters. Boy, there's another story there, brother. Demoted him to executive producer of Batman Returns and effectively barred him from the set. And if you know the story about John Peters, boy, let me tell you, that's a fun story. So there you go. If you know the Kevin Smith story about what happened, that's awesome. So, Warner Brothers was the production company and distributor with production assistant from executive producer Peter Grubers and Peters Polygram Pictures. So, there in a nutshell, kids, is the film. So for you, Phil, this holds up. Does it hold up as more than just nostalgia? Like, what's your version of this film apart from that? Can you separate, or are you even able to?
Oh, absolutely. That's why when I describe like the tones of isolation and identity here, those are things that I wouldn't have understood as a kid.
Sure.
A good part of my love of this movie is nostalgia, but I do think that there's a lot here for adults to understand that makes this movie better. Now, I also understand people that look at this with all of the hokey and all of the camp and some of the more disgusting aspects to it, that no, this is not a good movie. But I appreciate it because I appreciate what Tim Burton's trying to do here. It's the same thing I appreciate about some of his other movies, like Edward Scissorhands or Nightmare Before Christmas. I understand the story he's trying to tell, and there's some sincerity here that I think is missed under, it's just dark and weird for the sake of being weird. I actually think there is heart to this movie when you really boil it down.
Interesting. I don't know if I would have said that, but I can see where you're coming from. Like I mentioned, my favorite scene was when they realize who they are on the dance floor. When Keaton pushes away from her and she's about to say something or maybe run, he just grabs her and hugs her and like keeps dancing. Dude, that moment is so great, man.
They have great chemistry because everything about that, when you can see he got to her in a way because she's getting ready to cry, and he pulls her close and she's like, do we have to fight now?
Yeah. Let's go outside or something.
He says, you want to get out of here?
Yeah.
And they don't get a chance to have the conversation that probably would have changed a lot of the movie, but he attempts to have the conversation again in the third act of the movie when she's trying to kill Max, and of course he does not reach her because she very violently kills Max.
Yes. Wow, does she ever? By the way, that bird she puts in her mouth was a real bird.
Wow.
How you like that? They had bird puppets on set, but Pfeiffer thought they all looked too fake. Well, of course they did.
I gotta commit. I gotta put a whole bird in my mouth.
I'm saying she went through 60 cat suits during the 6-month shoot at a cost of $1,000 each.
Wow.
60 grand just for the freaking suit. That's wonderful. There's so much great stuff here. We could get another hour and a half, man. I'm not kidding you.
Yeah, Danny Elfman soundtrack is also fantastic.
Of course, great Danny Elfman. By the way, are you one of those people that bag on him necessarily for like his stuff starts to sound alike after one movie to the next?
No, I think you can tell his sound, of course, but
sure,
and that could be nostalgia as well. I don't know.
I see where people are coming from, but I've never bagged on him. Like I get it. I get where the criticism comes from because it does sound familiar, but I don't know, man. Like every single Star Wars film to this date, I think has had John Williams score. And I'm not trying to compare the two at all, right? Because John Williams is a freaking master. But you know, I don't bump into that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, as we said, kids, we could probably do another hour and a half on this movie. Up to you if you think this is a Christmas film. Completely your call. But I'm here to tell you, this movie is it's different. It's again, I grew up with this too. So like I'm not hating on it. I wasn't trying to hate on it when we kicked it off. It's just my memories of it maybe weren't as crisp as they are now or as they were when I watched it again here today. But man, it's there's great moments in it. I love the cast. I think the costuming is wonderful. Cinematography is good. I mean, the music is there. It feels like a Batman film. Really all you can ask for. Again, it's got moments. So, yeah. What, look, in the end, is it too hard to compare this one to the 89 Batman Phil in terms of they're just two different movies? Like this movie outperformed the first one in terms of box office. And it was the first sequel to have done that since Jaws 2, which is worth noting. But like, what do you think, man? Do you think this is there, can you compare them or is it just too hard to do it?
I think you can. I think the first movie has more of a cool factor with the Prince soundtrack and everything. And it's different. This movie is more dark in some ways. It's definitely weirder. It's more of Tim Burton's style. And I mean, you get a lot of Tim Burton's style in the first movie, but this is unfiltered Tim Burton for sure.
Mm. Oh, no doubt about it. Yeah. The secrecy around this film is pretty big, kids. They had it got so bad that someone managed to get photos of DeVito in costume, and so they hired a private detective. From that point on, the security was so tough. Kevin Costner could not get in. He wanted to come by the set and visit. They wouldn't even let him in. I mean, they did everything they could to keep this stuff under wraps. And Danny DeVito was forbidden to describe the makeup to anyone outside the production, including family members. So, yeah, they did everything they could. Again, this day of the internet, Phil, we've already seen what the new Superman looks like. We see everything long before it ever happens. But they did all they could to keep this stuff under wraps at the time. So
yeah, I missed that time period of,
me too.
We know way too much about how the sausage is made now.
Yeah.
And sometimes I just want to be a moviegoer and be, surprised to be submerged into the movie going experience. And that was definitely one of those things from that time period that you cannot get back. We're just too far away from that time period.
Mm. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, kids, there you have it. There is your official Christmas movie, depending on where you fall. That is Batman Returns. And if you think we're going to dive into the movies that continued after this one, boy, you couldn't be more wrong, because I'm not doing it. All right. So, no one's going to talk me into it, because wow. All right. Talk about things that don't hold up. They didn't hold up when they were made, and I'm sure they don't hold up now. But there you have it, folks. Phil, let's try to put a bow on this, right? Give me your last word on Batman Returns.
Batman Returns is a great popcorn movie if you want to see it. And I do think it is a good Christmas movie. Some people probably are going to scoff at that, but it's a Christmas movie because I do think it depicts in its own way the separation between what Christmas is for children and what Christmas is for adults.
That's really well said. Like, you made the stuff you pointed out from the beginning to now. I mean, it gave this movie a lot more depth than, I'm not going to say than what they had, because I don't know if that's the case, but it's given me a different perspective on it, for sure.
And
makes sense.
Those themes, along with Christmas, fit the Batman character perfectly, because at his core, Batman is a character whose innocence was taken away from him as a kid.
Yeah.
And so he sees the world through this very dark way. And that's the movie. That's the movie in a nutshell, of him trying to enjoy Christmas and trying to find someone else in the world that he can relate to. And he can't. By the end of the movie, even this person that is the most like him that he's met to this point doesn't fully understand him. And you get this idea of how lonely it is being Batman.
Yeah, that's fair. That's good. Well, kids, again, this may not be the version of Batman that we see in other movies, in the animated series. I would like to think each Batman is his own little special version. And because the multiverse and the DC universe, kind of like in Marvel, this stuff can just continue on forever. But I think in terms of the Batman that we know is Michael Keaton, the one that got the grand send-off in the Flash movie. If nothing else good came of that movie, and nothing did, in my opinion, it was that Michael Keaton got a send-off, which was nice. But, yeah, great to see him back. Again, the cast is fantastic. And again, kids, if you've never seen this, it is worth a watch. Don't let me stop you from watching it. I will just, fair warning, if you've only seen the Batman 89, prepare yourself. Because, man, it's kind of like Batman 89 if you tilt your head sideways and squint your eyes, because, weird, wacky things are happening. But, yeah, I think there's enough there to keep you entertained. There's certainly enough there for us to do a podcast about it and remember it years later. And there's enough there for fans to keep talking about it to this day. So, folks, there you have it. Batman Returns in the book. Stay tuned for more. We appreciate you very much. And we'll get back to it as soon as we can. Thanks much, kids. We'll see you next time. And for now, that is Batman Returns.
Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Check out our social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 6M Podcast. We'll see you next time.